Hey, guys.
Hi! I have some
wonderful
guests today, and we are going to talk about, guys,
World War II.
It's time to talk about World War II. So, the causes of World War II, we can't talk about World War II without talking about World War
One.
and how it's the war to end all wars, but shocker, it
Didn't.
You guys are doing so well. You're doing so well. Europe has a major history of conflict. This is going to be a big part of it, and we know that if Germany and other areas hadn't been so unstable, could someone like Hitler ever take power?
Never.
Hopefully not. We would hope not. Also, what treaty just drops the ball after World War I?
Treaty of Versailles.
The Treaty of Versailles. The Treaty of Versailles has how many points? Supposedly, Woodrow Wilson has 14-point plan, and what part does not work? It's supposed to be for collective security, and it doesn't take off. We don't join.
Nope.
The League of Nations.
It's called the League of Nations, so that's going to be a big part of this. Also, we are increasingly isolationist,
Excuse the interruption.
right?
If all
Mrs. Milson is also a guest in
council
this,
candidates
for sure.
would please go to guidance
We're really
right
isolationist
now.
because of
All
World War
student
I. We
council
don't want to be
candidates,
involved.
please
And
go
also,
to
when Hitler
guidance right
starts
now.
to do
Thank
all this
you.
and invade other places, what do Britain, France, and even us do a little bit? What's that called? And we just say, oh, will you stop now? We let you do this, and don't take any more past Czechoslovakia and the Sudetenland. What's that called? Starts with an A. We set an object in motion, will stay in motion, and we do not stop him, so he keeps going. Neville Chamberlain says, I've achieved peace in my time, but he really hasn't, because we've done a bad thing, which was not stop Hitler, but instead appeasement, absolutely. And then we know you have major aggression from Germany and from Japan. And that aggression from Germany is going to be later on invading places like Poland and other spots. And for us, what does it mean from Japan?
Pearl Harbor.
Pearl Harbor. What day is Pearl Harbor?
December
7th, 1941. 1941. Well done, Lola. Well done. We are moving on. So that's a recap of the causes of World War II. The effects of World War II, we know that parts that were occupied by Japan and by Germany, what happens to them? Do we just leave them be? No, we don't. We show up and we are going to split Germany into 4 sections. Vietnam is going to be watched over by France and Korea. The USSR gets the top part, we get the bottom part, and we know this leads to future conflicts down the road. What do we create? It's a League of Nations, except it works. It's still around.
The UN?
Yeah, the United Nations, right? But what happens? This war ends. We go right into what war with the Soviet Union? Oh, it's getting chilly in here. The Cold War, right? And who is the number 1 world power? The United States is the number 1 world power after World War II, but Russia is right there. And we said we are like the 2 competitors, valedictorian, salutatorian, vying for that number 1 spot, right? And this is why we cannot afford to be isolationists anymore, because we're seen as this number 1 power. Okay, so that's a recap of causes and effects. Now we're going to do rapid fire. I'm not going to go over what's going on with Germany. We know we have dictators because they rule every aspect of a person's life. They're called totalitarian dictators. Excellent. In Italy, it's going to be. In Germany, it's.
Hitler.
In the USSR, it's. And in Spain, it's. Franco. Right. Ferdinand the Bull. Okay. We talked about fascism glorifying the state and not the individual. People lose their individual conscience, individual voice. These horrific things start to happen. They give up literally their neighbors and also their powers. Was that your bell?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've really study hall.
You guys have study hall?
Yes.
I'll write 2 passes. You want to keep going?
All right.
Okay. That's where more people may come in. We're just going to keep filming.
All right.
We're here.
There's film documentation that you are here with me. So military force starts to happen. You're not going to have all of these different no whispering. We're pausing.
No!
We've remedied our conflict. Here we go. I think we're going to be okay. All right. Military force. Japan starts to invade China. Italy starts to invade Ethiopia. And everyone says, hey, help me out, League of Nations. But they can't because they're too weak. Hitler takes action. He invades Austria. He invades the Rhineland. He invades Sudetenland. War is completely erupted in Europe. We know that it's going to be Poland. Russia is not doing anything. Why not? What did he sign with Russia? A non-aggression pact with Russia, right? Poland gets invaded. France is going to fall. They become Vichy France. Hitler marches through the heart of Paris. The one democracy left standing truly in Europe is going to be great Britain. And what does Hitler try to do?
Take
He
over.
tries to completely take over, bring them to their knees by constant bombing, right? The Blitzkrieg. But it does not work. They stay strong. In the meantime, FDR is talking with the leader of Great Britain, who is Winston Churchill, and we're having things like the Atlanta Charter secret meetings because to the people he has to be very much about isolationism because we're scared and we don't want to get involved, but he's inching closer. And the British people are quite amazing at this time. So we enter this war, as we said, even though we have the quarantine speech, cash and carry, we're getting closer, but we enter this war officially because of Pearl Harbor. And then it's like a switch went on. We are ultimately in this. And we mobilize our armed forces. We said tons of women in the armed forces. Can you give me examples of women in the armed forces?
Well, is it like Rose of the River? Like
Remember those acronyms? Yeah. The
WWII.
the WAPs, the waves, right? The WASPs, all these different groups. We said lots of social change at this time. Lots of minorities coming in, Mexicans coming in through the Bracero program, lots of African Americans moving up north for different jobs. And we said this is all changing, and even though the men come back after World War II, it is not going to go away. Those seeds are being planted for the civil rights movement, women's liberation movement, Latino rights movement, etc. What secret project do we start to develop the atomic bomb in? The Manhattan Project. And by the way, this social change doesn't always go well. Uh-oh, this is where we get in trouble. There's officially no one in my 8th period class, not a soul. Thank goodness I have these 3 adopted students, all from my 4th period representing for me. Okay, very quickly. And second, Emma. And second. She can hula hoop, but we'll talk about that later. The battles continue between us and Germany. What ocean is between us?
No.
The Atlantic Ocean. That is on record for millions of people to see.
That's quite outrageous.
Us fighting the German U-boats, and we said again, it's amazing. You have so much diversity. Who is doing all the special codes that are being sent through the submarines? Who rises to the fore again? Minorities are going to be a big part of what's going on with the war effort. Do you guys remember the secret code talkers? What language it's in, so that the French and
Morse code.
They're going to use some Morse code, but
I don't recall.
Navajo Indians, remember?
Oh,
yes.
yes.
Yeah. The Battle of Stalingrad is devastating for Russia. That's going on. We are going to enter through Africa, right? And then we're going to work our way up, come through Italy. And when we do, Mussolini is going to be deposed. And then how do we break into that Western front, catch the Germans by surprise? The Russians are coming from the east. We're going to come from the west once we land on June 6, 1944, which is D-Day. You guys got it. The Battle of the Bulge is going to be between us and Germany. As we're kind of following them, we talked extensively in class about the Holocaust and that devastation and how we have to learn from it. Always remember, even with those crazy statistics that more and more people are forgetting, that came from this year's National Holocaust Remembrance Day. And also for us to understand what's currently going on in the Middle East, because so many Jewish people then go to Israel, right? And how that plays into not just our politics in the 1970s, but current day. You guys have such good camera faces. Okay, and then the war in the Pacific, again, this is just our soldiers, right? But why is it so difficult as we fight the Japanese?
Because we have so many Japanese Americans.
We do, who are in, at the time, internment camps. But what's going on with the actual fighting of the Japanese in the Pacific? Why is it so hard? A couple reasons. We're going island by island. We're island hopping. That's really hard. And also, the Japanese never what? They do not surrender. They do not surrender. So all these different battles, Battle of Bataan, Okinawa, it is so, so difficult. And that's why Harry Truman starts to think about using the atomic bomb, right? And also we said for these men in the South Pacific, culturally, things are so, so different for them than it is for guys stationed in Africa, Europe, etc. What's going on the home front? We know that we're sacrificing a lot. How are we sacrificing? What are we doing?
Ration.
We have ration coupons. What else? Meatless. Mondays. People are going vegan because they had to. Because they had to. We're buying war bonds. People are paying such a personal price. We know that in Hollywood, what kind of movies are they making?
Happy movies.
Happy movies, all about supporting the war effort, what you're supposed to do. Very interesting. There's a Barnett ruling which says you don't have to say the Pledge of Allegiance, you just have to stand for it. And as Emma mentioned before, we have this devastating legacy of Japanese internment. And we know that one person challenges this, and his American name is Fred Korematsu. And that's Korematsu versus U.S. following Executive Order 9066. And we later on apologize for this. It's just a gross egregious, terrible treatment of people's civil liberties during wartime, and we said we work together so well with all these other groups, but then we do not hear, and that is the scapegoat and that psychological displacement for all of our fear and hatred at this time. Bless you. The role of the government continues to increase, and then we finally end the war in Europe because Hitler's being closed in upon. As we do, we discover these gruesome and terrible death camps such as Auschwitz. The Yalta Conference is between the big three. Who are the big three? Big three leaders. We're like, okay, how is this war going to end? So the United States and FDR, the USSR and Joe Stalin, and England and we just said Winston Churchill get together to talk about how this is going to go down. We decide we're going to chunk up Germany into these 4 sections. Pretty soon Hitler's going to die, and that's going to be in 45. So now we have to end the war in the Pacific, and we know we do this how? We end the war in the Pacific by dropping the atomic bomb, first on the city of Hiroshima and then on the city of Nagasaki. And this is our legacy again that we have to live with, that we introduce these horrific war measures. These are dropped on civilians. Post-war, we come up with the UN, the Potsdam Conference. Harry Truman checks in with Joe Stalin. How's that going? It's not going good. And that's it. You're welcome, Ellia. Thank you to our guests today.
Thank you, Ms. Batt.
You guys are going to be great tomorrow. Bye.
Bye.